Heughan speaks about love more openly than most men in Hollywood. So why does it never seem to stay in his life? The answer isn't romantic, and it's far more unsettling than fans are prepared to hear. He talks about love with disarming honesty, about connection, about vulnerability, about wanting something real, and yet, year after year, Heughan keeps returning to the same place, alone. No confirmed partner, no lasting public relationship, just interviews filled with warmth, longing, and words that promise intimacy, followed by a silence that feels louder every time it falls. That contradiction is where the real story begins. And it isn't the fairy tale many fans want to believe. From the outside, Sam's life looks full: fame, admiration, global success, a fan base fiercely invested in his happiness. But strip away the applause and something doesn't quite add up. Here is a man who speaks about love as if he's studied it deeply, who understands its language, who values emotional closeness, and yet somehow never seems able to hold on to it. This isn't about bad luck or secret romances hidden from view. It's about a pattern that repeats quietly and persistently. Since his rise to international fame through Outlander, Sam has lived under a microscope. Every interaction is analyzed, every smile is frozen into a screenshot, every woman near him becomes a headline before a second date could ever happen. He didn't shut down in response. Instead, he did something unexpected: he kept talking about love. About depth. About emotional honesty. But words, no matter how sincere, don't protect you from loneliness. What no one likes to admit is that fame doesn't just complicate relationships, it rewires them. Trust becomes fragile, motives grow unclear, affection is questioned. Sam has hinted at this more than once, carefully choosing his words. Never bitter, never accusatory, just honest enough to reveal the weight of it. When love enters a life this public, it doesn't arrive quietly. It comes carrying expectations, projections, and pressure that few relationships survive. And then there's Jamie Fraser, the shadow that follows him everywhere. Jamie loves fiercely, loyally, unconditionally. Fans didn't just fall for the character. They fused him with the man who plays him. Over time, that blurred line became a trap. Sam wasn't just expected to find love. He was expected to live up to a fictional standard of devotion written by someone else. That kind of expectation doesn't inspire romance. It suffocates it. So Sam kept doing what felt safest. He shared his thoughts. He spoke about emotions. He allowed himself to sound hopeful. But when it came to fully opening his private life, he pulled back. Not because he didn't want love, but because love in his world rarely belonged only to him. Every beginning carried the weight of an audience. Every ending risked becoming public property. That's how a love life can look open and still feel empty. You talk about love because you believe in it. You speak about it because you miss it. And you avoid showing it because you're protecting what little space you have left. Over time, that creates a strange emotional echo: words without permanence, desire without stability, openness without fulfillment. The most uncomfortable truth is this: Heughan isn't unlucky in love. He's overexposed to it. And in that exposure, intimacy loses its grounding. What remains is conversation, reflection, and longing, but no place for love to quietly settle and stay. That's the part fans rarely see. And it's why he keeps talking about love, even as it keeps slipping through his fingers. Heughan's love life has always been visible. And yet, strangely, it has always felt empty in a way that unsettles even his most loyal fans. He smiles for the cameras. Walks red carpets with confidence. Speaks openly about romance, connection, and vulnerability. And still, beneath all that openness, there is a silence that refuses to go away. That silence is the real story no one quite knows how to talk about. Because while Heughan has never completely hidden his romantic life, the truth is far more complicated, and far more lonely, than the headlines suggest. For years, the world has watched him become one of television's most desired leading men thanks to Outlander. Fame arrived fast, intense, and unforgiving. With it came a level of scrutiny few people are ever prepared for. Every glance became a story. Every smile became a theory. Every woman standing a little too close became a narrative. And Sam, unlike many celebrities, didn't run from it. He talked about love. He talked about wanting connection. He talked about heartbreak. But the more he shared, the more something felt missing. That's the paradox that has followed him for over a decade. His love life is public, and yet it feels conspicuously hollow. Sam has admitted more than once that relationships became harder, not easier, as his career exploded. Not because of a lack of opportunity, but because intimacy under constant observation stops being intimate at all. When every dinner date becomes a headline and every rumored partner becomes a target for speculation, romance loses its safety. It turns performative, and over time, that performance takes a toll. There were moments when Sam seemed genuinely hopeful, times when he spoke about building something real, about craving a life beyond filming schedules and promotional tours. But almost as quickly as those moments appeared, they dissolved into silence. No confirmations, no long-term public partner, just the same cycle repeating itself: curiosity, speculation, disappointment, and then emptiness again. What many people fail to understand is that loneliness doesn't disappear just because someone is admired by millions. In fact, admiration can deepen it. Sam once hinted that being constantly desired can make it harder to be truly known. People fall in love with an image. They project fantasies onto a face. And eventually, you're left wondering if anyone sees the person behind it. He has spoken about how fame disrupted his ability to trust. Not dramatically, not bitterly, but honestly. Trust requires privacy, and privacy became a luxury he no longer had. Every new connection came with questions he couldn't ignore. Is this real? Or is it curiosity? Is this affection, or proximity to fame? Those doubts don't build stable relationships. They create emotional distance. So despite being open about dating, about attraction, about longing for love, Sam's romantic life often feels like a series of near misses. Almost possibilities that never quite take shape. It's not that love wasn't there. It's that sustaining it in public became nearly impossible. Of course, fans filled in the gaps. They always do. Some romanticized his single status, turning it into a story of destiny, of waiting for the one. Others scrutinized every interaction, convinced there was a hidden relationship being concealed. But the truth is far less dramatic, and far more human. Sam didn't hide love. Love struggled to survive in the spotlight surrounding him. There's also the weight of expectation. Playing Jamie Fraser didn't just define his career, it shaped how people expected him to love. Jamie is loyal, devoted, emotionally expressive in a way that borders on mythic. And whether fair or not, that standard followed Sam into real life. Fans wanted him to love like Jamie, completely, publicly, forever. But real people don't live inside scripts. Sam himself has acknowledged how exhausting it is to separate personal identity from a long-running role. When a character's romance becomes iconic, the actor's own love life begins to feel like it belongs to the audience. And once that happens, every personal choice feels judged. Why isn't he settled? Why isn't he married? Why is he alone? Those questions don't come from cruelty. They come from entitlement disguised as affection. Over time, that pressure creates withdrawal. You protect what little privacy you have left. You share just enough to seem open, but never enough to feel exposed. That's how a life can look public and still feel empty. And then there's timing. Sam's rise to global fame happened during the years when many people build long-term relationships. Instead, he was living out of suitcases. Training relentlessly, traveling constantly, pouring everything into a role that demanded his full emotional presence. When love appeared, it had to compete with exhaustion and absence. And often, it lost. Sam has admitted that commitment scares him, not because he doesn't want it, but because he fears failing at it under a microscope. Mistakes made in private can be healed. Mistakes dissected online become scars. That fear doesn't shout, it whispers. And sometimes, that whisper is enough to keep love just out of reach.